Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Mentors of Script, episode number 9. I think that's actually our 9th out of 10 episodes. We're going to do one more episode next week. This week we're talking about millennials. I think most of us actually on the panel are millennials in here, and we had so many different discussions in the last sort of nearly a decade, probably last 5 years, especially 5-10 years, about millennials being the most self-centered generation ever. They've been accused to kind of with the feeling of entitlement, with a poor work ethic, career impatience, depending on feedback, of course, a lot of addictions to social media. On the other side, we're seeing millennials as people kind of changing the world, creating new things, embracing technology, being probably one of the most flexible people to work with as well, So we have all the kind of panelists in here. I think we are a bit of bias as well, because I think a lot of us are from the first kind of tipping years of millennials to kind of the last ones as well, So we would like to get as much feedback as possible. If anyone wants to throw any questions in here or any feedback to us, that'll be great, to challenge our views. And and I will introduce all the panelists. I think you guys can see everybody in there. It's Vishal, as usual, Alice, Reese, and Peter. And we have Myresh trying to log on. We did have a few kind of issues today. I think Vodafone's down in London, so we have kind of substantial internet issues, today. So
he's not enough of a millennial to be able to sort his tech issues out.
Exactly. I think basically Vishal done something, there for East London. I think Vishal kind of broke into Vodafone, so Myresh will not be able to oppose this week, But if you will see him popping up, means Vodafone's back on. So yeah, guys, I think the first question to kind of shout out, and maybe to get your opinions. I think it's funny enough, when we start researching it, we realized most of us are millennials, and as Reese told me, even Minde is a millennial.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, thank you very much. So what are your opinions? Without kind of getting into long discussions, would you agree that millennials are kind of the self-centered, kind of lazy, kind of dreamers kind of thing? On that side, would you feel that would be that we could kind of agree with that kind of point, or would you say that that's completely kind of nonsense and complete prejudice?
I kind of agreed with it. I did, and no offense to what my joke was to you last week, that even you were a millennial, because I don't know about everyone else watching, but I actually didn't know the age group of what millennials were. For some reason, I had it millennials were people from my age and above, so I didn't agree. I kind of agreed with it a bit. When I heard it went back even further, so it's 1982, isn't it?
It's 81 to 96.
So 1981.
1981, yeah.
So then I don't agree, no. So I thought, there's loads of successful people that have come out of it. I think there's other generations that are a bit more of a problem. But millennials, no, I don't think so.
I think it's a very special group, and I know we're all millennials, so it's very easy to say, well, this is a very special group, but it's a very special group because we're basically living or live through a technology revolution, isn't it? Really, I was born in 1990. I'm 30 right now, so millennials currently, as we speak today, are between 25 and 40 years old. And my first ever year in school, there was chalk and blackboard and chalk, right? Then for the rest of my education life, it was whiteboards as normal. But my last year was actually interactive smartboards. So I kind of, and that's just it's a sign of the technology revolution we kind of went through. I remember a modem first being brought into the home, and internet first ever coming into our house. Before that, even a computer. Now to the point where we're completely, adept with all this kind of stuff. But I remember the life before internet, computers, games. It was going out, till basically you were allowed out until the streetlights came on. So, a lot of stuff has happened in this time. I grew up with mobile phones coming out when I was 14, 15, and someone having a flip phone was the biggest thing in the world. But we would contact each other by going and knocking on their door. Also now to the point that as a mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s person, these people are completely running on technology and can't even see their life without it. So they've gone through a lot. We've gone through a lot, and also in this time as well, I think we've seen some major increases in cost of living. Cars, houses, mostly properties, right? So from when I was born to now, I think house prices have gone 7 times. So it's hard. It's hard to know the exact answer to that. But I just wanted to add that out there before someone else answers that. We're special. We're special. We've gone through a very interesting time period of life.
It's very true with what you're saying. So I guess from now on out, everyone else would see, an updated version of what we were introduced to. That's something I actually never thought about. So that's actually quite interesting. I remember when the first flip phone, or the phone that did that, I can't remember what it was called, a Motorola something. And if you had that, it was just the dog's bollocks when you had that. But it's true, we went from, I don't know if anyone was as cheesy as me, but it went from pen pals to MSN, going from MSN to LimeWire onto Apple Music, and then there's so many different...
MySpace, High Five,
MySpace,
Bebo.
Bebo, who could get the most loves in one day, but things like that. I think it was like we were the guinea pigs, weren't we? We were kind of the guinea pigs to go trial all these new things that kind of came out, and the first phone, and it was really cool to have snakes on your phone, and now we're all complaining because... Well, maybe not we're all complaining, but then people complain because there's no 5G in their area and stuff like that. And it's crazy the kind of adaptation people have had to go through from having nothing whatsoever to now what we've got. Like, we were talking last week in AI about self-driving cars and things like that, but even like Minde's Tesla, and I know Lena's dad has like a self-driving option. You can just let go and it just kind of drives itself. And I think to go from not having that whatsoever to now having this in our lives 24/7, it's a big thing that we've had to get used to. And I feel like, in the coming years, or our kids, when they're probably our age, we'll have just a better version of what we've had, but they've all grown up with it. Like Minde's kids would have grown up with iPads, and it's crazy to think about iPads when you were growing up. And it's quite interesting when you say that about the school and stuff, because me and Vish went to the same college, and talking about primary school where there was chalk, and then going into college times where everything was interactive and it was on big screens and you were watching stuff on screens, and then going on to laptops to type stuff up, and it was a very, very weird time. It's a very, very weird time, but
what I mean is I like it. I mean, we might be labelled entitled and stuff like that, but we'll get to ourselves later and stuff like that. But I like it that I did my coursework at school at GCSE at 16 years old, handwritten, and that was the norm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if someone typed it up, it was like, oh, you're a teacher's pet for typing it up. And now, obviously, that's just completely normal that you type it up and things like that. I remember no computer in the household. I remember landlines, and that was the only thing. I remember no internet. I remember internet not being a big thing in your life still, and things like that. So I like that I grew up.
Losing their temper. I remember my parents losing their temper when you turned the computer on, not knowing that they then can't receive or make phone calls.
Yeah.
Remember that? It used to make that horrible sound.
The dial-up. It was dial-up.
Dial-up, and it took around 10 minutes to load up.
Yeah.
And now we're annoyed that your laptop doesn't turn on like that. It's crazy.
The internet was only free after 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
That just sounds weird nowadays to even say that. And you would call your friend only if they were on the same network as you after 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Because it was free. Otherwise, you don't do that.
You just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, you just don't do that. Yeah, why would you spend that much? But yeah, I think. But what's happened then as a result of that is people have gone and achieved mega success, in that technology revolution, right? Like the Mark Zuckerbergs and the people, the Snapchat founders, the Instagram founders, the WhatsApp founders, and it was almost like because we picked up these things quickly, right? So I think that's one skill of ours that. Even so, Minde and Alex is just slightly older than me, so you'll have even a larger memory of not having these things growing up, but then having these things and now being completely one with these things, right? So we picked these things up quite quickly. People then took it to the next level on code and stuff, created social media and all this type of stuff and all these different things that made them successful. Then it was publicly seen, that success, through things like Instagram and through things like Facebook and things like that I do see where the entitlement comes. And obviously in our roles, what we do, we meet people all the time, especially us guys specifically. We conduct appointments of these guys all the time. And I definitely feel like there is this feel of I deserve to have something, or I should have something. And if I don't have it, then I will complain. And of course, what happened during that time, like I said before, was house prices disgustingly increased, right? So these people almost, excuse my language, they got effed basically, right? Because they thought they should have something that they don't have or they didn't work for. they didn't go for it, and at the same time, the things they thought they'd have at this age by now, between 25 to 40, they're not having because, you know, house prices are just, you know, stupidly high. I don't know what you might think of
it's
that.
quite interesting, you know, like, because there's so many topics actually we can take from that, you know, but because I think we can go on another one. I think I would like to actually discuss that question a little bit. This big kind of I think this big disparity between people that took that kind of technology revolution and kind of became billionaires. And I think one of the points of millennials, I think there was a probably first time maybe in history where we had like the same generation billionaires, for example, right? That somebody's like literally in a decade, in 10 or 20 years, become like one of the top richest people in the world, right? And of course, the other side, you know, I would like to direct a little bit to Alice and like well, maybe to Pete, you know, if Pete wakes up, I'm not sure if it's internet. But you see, what I find as well, do you think that idea of technology, actually his internet is definitely slow, or mine's slow, isn't it?
No, I'm good.
Looks like,
I think
looks like
he's just
like
really
5 minutes
zen.
later.
No, I'm enjoying it.
Either he doesn't get my jokes, so his internet is really slow. I think he's going back in dial-up, yeah, but Joe's
56k dial-up.
So,
Like a true
I remember
millennial.
I moved from uni accommodation. We had 1 megabyte internet, right? I think at the time, what was that? 2001 or 2002, right?
It was in kilobits, isn't it? It was like if you had like
Yeah.
anything above like 150 kilobits, you were the whoa.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I had 1
56 was
megabyte in
dial-up.
uni. I had 1 megabyte, and then I moved. Last year, I didn't get accommodation on the campus, and I had to move and rent a flat. And I had 128 kilobytes, I think it was, and that was classed as fast internet for normal people. I was like, Jesus.
Do you know about? Oh, go on,
Sorry, before we get in internet,
Yeah.
sorry, Alice. I think why I want to ask Alice. Alice, of course, we know Alice how she works, right? She has this incredible work ethic, and I think Alice and myself, we are just literally we are 1982 kind of thing, right? Oh, you shouldn't say the ladies, you know, date
It's
of
okay,
birth or
don't.
thing, right?
She's 1990 a lot.
Yeah, but the point is, I think, you know, what Vishal mentioned, like, I try to explain to my kids as well, you understand, if I wanted to find out something, right, I needed to go and get the book, and sometimes I had to read the whole book, and sometimes I had to go to library and ask for a book, and sometimes the book wouldn't even be there. Sometimes the librarian would say, "I'll get back to you when the book comes in." So sometimes in order for me to find an answer, right, it could have taken me days or even weeks sometimes, some specific answer, right, you know, because of course there was no Google, internet, whatever, right, and I think partially, I think this generation who kind of still lived in that a little bit, I assume we have way more patience and we have this a bit understanding of delayed gratification, maybe, you know, like where people would build businesses that actually took time, you know, like shopping centers or big malls, whatever, or property developments or some factories. I'm talking about back in the day, right? That took time to develop and build. Everything was kind of physical, you know, like what a digital is so much faster. So do you think, you know, our generation kind of lost that kind of idea of delayed gratification? And I think that's where a lot of mental and psychological issues come in, that technology provides instant answers, instant solutions, and maybe people expect those instant kind of results. Like people want to lose weight, and they, for example, somebody had an unhealthy lifestyle, right, for maybe decades. They want to find a diet that's going to lose weight in a month, kind of thing, right? You know, or people who maybe, I don't know, they get a job and they look on social media and see somebody who's being CEO, and they want to, if they don't progress for 6 months or 12 months, they can't stay focused, kind of thing, you know. Whereas, of course, in our parents' generation, kind of thing, a lot of them had only one job in their entire life, kind of thing, right? That's quite normal. And I think right now, Alice, do you think that actually we are spoiled by technology, and I think that, do you think that could affect people's clearly patience levels or focus levels?
Yeah, very interesting question. I find that actually, from my point of view, millennials are split in two, from my point of view. So I think there is this generation, the beginning of what we call, you know, Generation Y, which is the millennials. So maybe from the 1980s till maybe, I don't know, late 1990s, maybe 1995, close to 2000. I find a big gap between the way me and you think, operate, see things, and the same with my friends who are similar to my age, and then people who are a lot younger. Obviously, of course, there will always be a gap, but they're still millennials. So, for example, Reese, what year were you born, if you don't mind me asking?
1992.
1992. Okay, cool. So it's only
Thanks,
a 10-year
Dad.
gap. Uh, but even though I find we have certain things in common, of course, and we all do in this group, by default, I guess, being millennials. But I also find that, of course, for example, when I discovered, the internet, I was already in uni. But I don't think it's
So did I.
necessarily only to do with the fact that, it's a millennial thing. I also think with the fact that I was brought up the same with me, like in Eastern Europe or in, that part of Europe. And already, even though, let's say me and somebody else who was born in UK, we would be born at the same time, maybe the same day, the same year. Clearly, we would have been introduced to technology and to the digital era in different circumstances because one person would be from UK and one from Romania, let's say. So
Alice, do you think there's a bigger...
that's why as well, for me, I clearly, like Vishal mentioned earlier,
I think we've got the delay again. This is
yeah,
gonna
carry
be
on,
interesting.
Vishal, I can hear you.
Yeah. So, do you think there's that
Yeah.
within millennials? Do you think there's two groups because of more than any other kind of generation, because of that technological revolution, for example, that the ones who are the early millennials, early 80s, they lived a lot of their grown up child life without that, and then someone like Reese, or even later than Reese, they would have had that stuff right from their birth almost. Do you think that's why?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm convinced by that. And I think you can see it a little bit sometimes, in our morals, in our, patience, like Minda was saying. I think definitely I have a lot more patience towards certain things in comparison to somebody like Reese, let's say. Obviously, I worked with Reese closely as well, so I can say he always wanted things straight away, isn't it? And he would get quickly, wind up if things wouldn't happen there and then, isn't it? And his expectations of, let's say, maybe earning more, achieving more, would be a lot higher, quicker, in a shorter space of time than my ones. It does not mean that maybe people, who were born the same year as me or, close to that, year, they shouldn't have higher expectation. But definitely growing up until I was like maybe 19 or 20 without internet, without mobile phone, clearly altered a little bit I see I see the world and everything, and I definitely had to work much harder to adapt. So yeah, I do sound a bit like an ex, but yeah, it is. I see things. I see two generations in one.
It's true though, because I think even with what Alice was saying, that she was already in uni when the internet came out. I think I was 7 or 8.
I think it was out earlier, right? It's just by the time it got to you, Alice, to your day to day. Are you saying it was uni?
No, it was uni for me. It's like year 2000. I mean, internet was probably last 2 years in my high school, so I must have been about 15, 16. I was 98 kind of thing. I finished school 2000, like my high school.
I was going to say, I think I remember it coming into our house about 97.
That's what I was thinking, around 97, 98. But I think it's because you probably had so much of your life without it that you didn't need to depend on it. But I think maybe people my age, because they were then turned into teenagers and it was already there, it was just normal for them, wasn't it? It was just kind of normal to be on the internet and stuff like that, where you guys would have had 10 years just not needing it. And like, weirdly enough, I've never rented a book from a library ever, not one.
See, that's interesting because that was very prominent around my age. Although I didn't do it much at all, but I did have a library card, and that was just very normal that you just go to the library, as Minde said, you get a book out on your library card and you take it back in 2 weeks, that's it.
I had a library card from being in the field. That's a true story. I've never had a library card, but it rained, and it rained on the maps, and I couldn't get the maps. So I went in because I was like, libraries have printers. I went in and I had to become a member. So I became a member, I think, in 2019, something like that.
Oh my god!
It's my first time having a library card.
Entrepreneurship, man.
Entrepreneurship, man.
I think
Thanks
I
to the
still owe a
business.
book back to my local library, so I stopped going.
Wow.
I was scared of the fine.
I think Amazon
About
killed
20K
the
now.
libraries in it. And I think that's another thing about incomes and stuff like that. I don't know, like would my kids ever go to library? You just buy a book, or you just rent it online or whatever, again, it's instant. Like you couldn't be bothered to go to library to see if they have a book. I just buy it, kind of thing, and it gets delivered tomorrow. Or in Kindle, you just buy it and it comes instantly, kind of thing, right?
And you can
know.
swap
That's-
and
that's-
share, isn't it?
That's a good point that you and Alice were talking about. It's just this the latter half of millennials is very used to an instant lifestyle, and
Yeah.
not just with day-to-day stuff like, oh, I want a book and I get it now and I can download it, but then it seeps into the bigger parts and the more serious parts of life, which is career, you know, lifestyle, ambition, incomes, promotions, moving forward in life, etc., etc. It could even, I mean, separate topic maybe, but could even go into the love part of their life as well, where they expect that you just meet someone and that's it, and it's happily ever after type of situation. But then you couple that. Obviously, it's not true. We know that's not true. Like the big things in life don't happen overnight like that, right? But then you couple that with the fact that it is actually now harder to go buy a house, harder to put the deposit together, harder to do X, Y, and Z. You know, and I suppose these millennials are very educated in the sense that they more and more people are achieving the high levels of education, but that just actually means more competition for the same amount of roles that they were previously as well. So there's a sense of, I got a degree, you told me to get a degree, you told me that's the route to take in life. I'm 30 to 40 to 50 grand in debt, and you know, where's my top salary? Where's my house?
Yeah.
Where's my shit? And it's like, well, no, no, doesn't quite work like that. And you know, I was that person as well. I was, you know, meant to go to uni and I was meant to get a good job. And for me personally, a good job was 30 to 40k a year salary. That's what I thought, I assumed was a good one. And I thought with that, I would live the lifestyle I want, the holidays I want to go on, the car, the house. You just do the maths now on 35k, you're not getting anything.
One bedroom
That's
flat
another
in
kind
London.
of
Yeah.
huge issue, isn't it? What the
Yeah.
change, I think, what you said about income and stuff like that. It's huge, isn't it? And but yeah, so I would like to get Peter as well involved. You know, the idea of direct gratification. I know, Peter, you just opened your business like literally, well, about a year ago now, like year and a bit ago, isn't it?
Year and a bit,
And
yeah.
I think a lot of people that you worked in your team were actually kind of the end of kind of millennium spectrum, right? You know, because you worked for.
I was the
guys
oldest
who just
person,
hit-
yes.
Yeah, so you was like, I mean, a lot of your team was in very early 20s or just hitting 20s kind of thing, right? So do you find yourself that the idea of, do you feel that you, for example, would have way more patience, or do you feel that you work with younger generation that it's actually much harder for them to stay focused, or do you kind of have different opinion on that?
I think it's a bit of both. I think with millennials, it was a huge change of like information, internet, all that stuff. And I think with huge change of lifestyle, with all what you guys said, it comes really huge change in values. So what Vishal just mentioned, my parents will tell me to go and do this, this, and this, and this, because for them it was free, and they had job lined up for them.
Forgot
especially-
about that. That was free as well. That's a good point.
Yeah. And for us, it's £400,000 with another 400,000 people, not 400,000, 40,000 pounds with another 500,000 people that are competing for 100 jobs, right? So it's almost like it's not really feel like I'm more entitled because I'm millennial, but I think the reason is because I was expecting, his expectation was different. You were telling me the facts that turn into fairy tales. And then for me, that is like, I feel a little bit of wasting my time. And then we start blaming our parents.
That's how
You
Joe
know-
still operates on the field now, by the way. I've heard if you're in his sector, you're not at the meet-up point, he's gone. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's it. So
But
So,
some people
for example,
might think
Joe
they're
is-
entitled,
then-
then Joe's gonna wait for them.
no,
Yeah.
or the other way around. Is Joe entitled person that doesn't need to wait for anyone? It's really a perspective, right?
Boy.
So I know, mind twister. There you go. Let you with that. But then as well, what the whole information, and I'll come back to your question because it's cool actually, because it's so much. There is variance in between me and the guys that with my team. But then there's not that much as well, because we land at the end. Now we're here at the same stage of human evolution, so they were born into it. I adapted to it. It's not really that much difference, even though I'm half caste, which I know it's politically incorrect. But if I'm half, I'm living in their life, but then I was born in a different era. It's still, we are living the same thing, we live in the same place. But I think with information, information give, again, two perspectives. One, freedom, like what Mindy was saying, if I wanted to learn something, I have to go and get a book. But then the other side is where I was living, the things I wanted to learn at the time were completely different than the things I want to learn now. So now, because of the environment, and now because of information, information era, there is a lot of things I can figure out. It doesn't need to be where I live and from people that I know, or from books, because maybe I don't like books. Like, I'd never read a book before, like 5 years ago, right? But then I think that gave us freedom, like information era gave us freedom to go and explore. But then what happens is, I don't know, guys, how you felt, but when you learn new things, sometimes you just get excited about learning rather than applying. Well, I think that is what damaging us a little bit as well, and the generation after us. I don't know which generation it is. What is it, X? What is it? What's the one after us?
Z.
That's the one. The last
That's
one.
the official name.
That's the last one. There's no, after Z, it's no more.
There's another not so nice name.
No, it's A. It's already started.
A1.
No, A has already started from.
Okay, fair enough. But I think
17 or
with so much information, there you go, baby boomers. Yeah.
No, baby boomers is 2 before us.
That's how.
Okay, that's not my point. I mean, I'm talking
The
about
one after us is Zoomers, Gen Z.
David. If you can find out, you can
Snowflakes.
put the eras one after each other, or the periods after each other.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think with loads of information, though, on the other hand, then you get damaged by just that dopamine that you want to consume stuff, and but you never really find what you want because there's so much. It's like, I don't want to miss out anything. Let me just learn anything, and then you expect something to change, which I think that's bad way to take up on information. I think a lot of things that were great, but a lot of things that make not only our generation, not only millennials, but the one after, a little bit vulnerable. And again, at the end of the day, every single generation thinks of the next generation as more entitled. Let's be honest. Like, my parents definitely felt entitled, and then we think all these little youngsters, they think they know it all. I think that's a natural thing. So I don't think the Generation Z thinks that we're entitled because they don't care about us. Put it that way, yeah. And then we think that they're entitled. So, and then surely my parents.
I don't think they're entitled. I think a lot of other stuff, but not.
But you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
then they expect what we expect and more, right? Because
You know
they
what's
have it
gonna
more.
ask, Peter, maybe for a question to you and for everyone, if you guys want to jump in. It's quite interesting about the entitlement. I was thinking, you know what, is this actually a generational thing? And I don't have the data, but does that happen across the globe? Does that happen actually more kind of in Western world kind of thing? Because my question is, it just seems like, since kind of First, Second World War, of course there's been depressions and stuff like that, right? So people had quite tough conditions of living, right? And living conditions, obviously, at least in Western world, improved, improved exponentially in last kind of, 20, 30, 40 years kind of thing, right? So my question is again that if our parents' generation had to work extremely hard, in most cases, just to physically kind of, like bring food, physical food. When I say bring food on the table, that's what they actually meant, food on the table, right? So maybe there was not that much emotional connection with families, that type of stuff, right? But maybe our generation, we already kind of grew up in an environment where we didn't have to worry that much about actual food kind of thing. You know what I mean? At least where I grew up, we already had like, we always had food, we always had clothes, we always had the basic kind of needs met in UK, in Western world. You guys already been going around holidays, whatever, traveling. So maybe then it's quite hard to find the self-esteem kind of thing. I think that's another thing where millennials start searching for the purpose in life kind of thing, right?
Thanks, Dave.
Because our parents, didn't have to look for purpose in life. Their purpose was pretty much survival kind of thing for a lot of them, right? And right now, I would say majority of people in the Western world do not have to think too much about survival kind of thing, right? You know what I mean? And maybe then we start looking for something else in our lives, And is this a generational thing, or is it just because a lot of things that our parents had to work for got naturally given to us instantly, so we kind of don't know what to do in life, if that makes any sense. I think that could be just to do with economics rather than actually some generations, or not.
I think it's maybe they feel that we're entitled, but maybe they think that we're just soft. But I think that's completely different. Like, you might be soft, but you don't need more. You don't want more. Like, I don't need any more. But hey, I don't like to deal with troubles. But I'm happy with how I am. So that that could be just, I don't know, right? But I think it's always going to be like that, because previous generation would always have different problems than us, and then we would have already solved some of the problems they had, so they see that, oh, you don't have the problems I had. Obviously I didn't, but I have other problems based on me.
Yeah, we have our own set of problems based on the current age.
But then you wouldn't understand it because you don't live it, right? You don't live where I live. You don't live.
Yeah.
You don't have the person next to me or the business or whatever. My people, Bulgaria. My family never had a business, So like they think, oh my God, you're making good money. Oh great, not really. There are other things, or maybe just because I have a company doesn't mean it's always successful, right? There's other problems I have to deal with, Which
I think the argument, the argument of entitlement in every generation, I think it's valid, but I think that the reason why perhaps this one it's more valid about millennials is as you just said, Minde, right? Where we grew up, where the basic needs of a human being, at least in the Western world, were met, and our parents, probably even our grandparents, were if you don't work, then I don't even get to put a shelter over my kids or bring food on the table, as you said. There's less entitlement there. There's less chance that someone will not work to the level required and still expect the shelter and the food. It was actually almost a little bit normal, I would suppose, that you don't work to a certain level, your family doesn't eat, almost. But so that's why I think it's a little bit more valid with millennials, because we grew up, at least in the Western world again, we grew up with the basic needs of shelter, food, as you said, clothes, and the odd holiday here and there if you were doing a bit better. And you expect that then I shall now provide a life for my future family that not only has shelter, food, clothes, holidays, but naturally a little bit more, a step up, isn't it, right?
Yeah.
But they're fast finding out that they can't do, and obviously most of us are influenced by our parents, so we get the advice from our parents of what they did, but we're fast finding out, or these people are fast finding out, that doing what their parents did and listening to their parents' advice doesn't actually get them the same shit, and actually might even take them a little bit backwards in terms of the roof over their head, which is now owned by someone else, and I have to pay rent to them, if that makes sense. Did you get my point? So I get what you mean. I think every generation is going to be entitlement, but just based on those points that you made, I feel like this is why the millennials are they're getting battered a little bit from both sides. They are changing the world. We haven't even touched on the positives yet of all the people that have done that. And remember, 25 to 40, they're not quite world leaders yet. Most countries have a rule where you've got to be a certain age before you run
plus
the world.
40,
plus 40. So
I think that's biological stuff. I think it's like more hormonal.
So that's the question I want to ask you later on, actually, because I know Alice wants to say something as well. But these are going to be the future world leaders as well. These are going to be the future world leaders. So, and they're changing the world. Like veganism is a big thing, and this is all kind of through the millennial movement. The social media technology revolution was basically, other than Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and these types of Elon Musk as well. Other than those three, it was mostly ran and spearheaded by millennials. But we can't like. I say we now, I don't say they, but we, because we're all millennials. I think where the problem arose was we were promised great stuff from the previous generation.
100% agree.
And it's not materializing due to life. Welcome to life, right? And that's just the way shit works.
I think that was because of huge change. I think that was like because it's almost like we went into a trap, and then even my parents didn't know about it clearly, because otherwise they wouldn't have advised us what they advised us, right? Because even my parents now, they're like, oh, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do this? Oh, it would be so great. You would be great at this and this and this and this. But you only see it when you know. That comes with information. That comes where you can see other examples about it. You can see other people that can do it. You have those like cool people that do things that we know about and we wouldn't know about him like 10 years ago, like I think Vish said. And now everyone knows, now we're getting a bit more like aware, but then now it's so much to do, where do we start? And I think that's another trap that we're about to do.
I think there's a lot of options, So I know, let's get Alice involved as well. I know like her internet's a bit, she's on Vodafone, so she has an excuse, she's on Vodafone, so she's getting stuck a bit today. Vodafone gets canned.
She's still on the previous question.
Yeah, definitely.
Go on, Alice.
Cheers, Vishal, for the joke. I have so many things actually I want to say on all the points that you guys addressed, that I don't even know which one I want to get it out first, but I agree and I disagree with most of you, and I to a certain extent I see where this issue with entitlement comes from. But I also think, to a certain extent, it is right, because definitely millennials have a much more focus on larger societal needs, if I can say that, rather than individual needs, I find. And if we look at different people, who we believe they are world changers, like the Mark Zuckerberg and others, we can name so many people. They believe they are entitled to better, because they have made structural changes in societies all over the world. So I think in our DNA as millennials, especially for the people born at the beginning of this generation, from my point of view, I might be arrogant, I might be a bit hypocritical, there is this seed in our DNA, this thing planted in us, I don't know from where it comes, that we can do better, and that we can change, and we can bring up the best in people. So I find, for example, that the generation after the millennials, the much younger people, everything going so fast, I find they are much more individualistic. And I find that most millennials, but again, I might be biased because I'm one of them, we're much more centered towards society, charity, a
Do you
bigger
think he
goal,
did a circle,
a big
Alice, then?
dream. We're a lot more idealistic.
Do you think he did a circle?
I don't know if I did. Maybe.
No,
Not
as in
you.
the previous generation were individualistic. We became
Maybe.
societal, whatever you said, and then now we're back to individualistic again with the next generation. Do you think it did a circle?
And could it be what we said, the economy issue? Because this is the first generation ever that probably will be worse off than their parents. Because for last so many generations, naturally everybody was better off because economy grew, right? So that's why people might just retract back into themselves.
I think it's a bit of both. How do I put it across? Okay, it's difficult to express it, but I think our generation, it's been caught up in between, isn't it? Because it started slow with us, the millennials, from the 1980s, a bit of 1990, and then all of a sudden it just went
Boom.
up so
Yeah.
quickly, and all the digital, and all the boom, so we're kind of caught up in the middle, where we're trying to be these dreamers, these altruistic people, these people who want to change the world and everything, but at the same time everything happens so quickly and so fast that we can get frustrated that, hold on a second, I had a dream, I was on track to hit something, and now all of a sudden this new extra thing came up, and whatever I've tried to it in the past, let's say 5-10 years, is just not good enough, and it has to be scrapped and start everything all over again. So obviously it's hard to let go of the dream where you put so much, isn't it? So I think, yeah, we're a bit in between, and I think only people who are able to adapt fast will be able to continue with their dreams and keep on going that path and achieving it. That makes sense. So it's challenging, but it is what it is. Clearly we can be born in another era, or maybe in another life, but not this one for now, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the answer that I wanted to give you, Minde, as well. I wanted to, in terms of like my team and people that are younger, I think they're just type of people that are more individualistic, more freedom, and they want to take more responsibility. And there's people that just want to go with the flow. And I think working with people that are a bit more inspired to do things and have that positivity and freedom and found what they really like, or they're looking for what they really like and willing to give it a little bit time to settle in and grind through it. I think these are the people that would just achieve, I think in every era, every time, throughout history, we see people that are trying to grind and trying to get stuck into something that they want to do. They end up achieving more than other people, and I think that's the difference, no matter when you're born.
Mm-hmm. So do you think now, I just look at quality. Is he joking? This is like the best quality ever. We've been freezing all day. So again, like just to kind of, when we're gonna go on the second part, okay, before we finish, I would like to maybe try to get some advice. If anyone will see, what would you do in order for you to kind of, I don't know if the good word to succeed, okay, but would you agree then that the separation of the society, which we talk a lot about right now, is kind of due to the fast pace of development, the incredible pace of development kind of thing, If you notice even today, like these days right now, people are quite, people are angry, aren't they? Like vegan people who, that's kind of include me, like who don't eat meat are literally nearly shouting at people that eat meat kind of thing, right? You know what I mean? It's like people who vote on one political party, they try to nearly kill people who are another political
race.
party, right? Yeah, it's
like
crazy,
racism.
isn't it? Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, actually, everything's like racism nearly, right? You know, in the sense that like if you don't believe in what I believe,
or
fuck off
racism
kind of
is
thing,
like
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, no, it's so bad, isn't it? Like about anything. Like Brexit was the same thing. They talk about immigration. There's the same people that live in the same village, and let's be honest, like that's including me too. You know, I've been in UK for I don't even know how many years now. What? It's 21 now. It's like 17 years, right? So some people lived there for like 15 years, and suddenly they start arguing with their neighbors who lived in there 10, 15 years because they're from different country, kind of thing. You know. So I think the same, like maybe, you know, where the kind of downside happens. You know. We have technology, so we have Facebook, Instagram, and we see all those extremely successful people, right? Or at least actually, let me just kind of rephrase the question. First of all, we have people who actually became extremely successful due to technology, right? That could be anything like YouTubers, Instagram, you know, like people who just make, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions just through social media kind of thing, right? Now, of course, there's not that many of them, is it? We're talking about a few thousand people maybe, like in the whole entire world, which has nearly 8 billion people right now. But because we see everybody in the world at the same time, it seems like there's a lot of them, isn't it, right? Whereas I say 20 years ago, you only knew your family, friends, people from your town, and some
that's
people
what's promoted the most
on the news, right? So now, technically, because you see all those people all the time, you'll feel that you should get the same thing in the same pace, right? Whereas what Vishal said, the reality is that 80-90% of millennials from a normal generation kind of thing, when I say normal, as if university, normal job, whatever, if you look at employment, right, you know, from employment perspective, incomes hasn't grown at all. I think incomes doubled in the last 20 years, whereas like Vishal said, property is going up like 7-8 times kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So most millennials are way worse off from their buying power, from economical power today than they would have been, you know, like or previous generation kind of thing, right? But at the same time, as it's very hard to believe that you're living in a generation that's way worse off when you're seeing everybody turning millionaires on social media, especially that a lot of people who are not millionaires, they're still posting that stuff, photoshopping, and that, you know what I mean, like, so, or they're trying to sell you something, their own lifestyle kind of thing. So people who are not maybe very well educated, they think that everyone that's posting stuff on social media is extremely successful kind of thing, right? And I think that's where a lot of anxiety comes from as well, isn't it? That this idea that this technology created quite a few successful people, and actually kind of then another 95% of people are getting upset if they don't get the same result in an extremely short space of time. And it's quite hard now for people to commit to some of the, I would suppose, the professions, like for example, medical doctor, does require like, you know, 10-15 years of education kind of thing, and it requires a few years as well to get a good income kind of thing, right? You know, so a lot of people probably will struggle to stay focused for 15-20 years. I mean, most people don't even stay focused for a year or two. You know what I mean? A lot of people can't even graduate university degree kind of thing.
I think there's a disparity as well with the stuff that you said, where social media, as you said, we people are now very used to seeing successful people on the internet, right? As you said and made very clear that this is a very, very small percentage of people, you know, in the actual world. But because they're able to reach an audience like that instantly, it makes it seem like this is everyone now. And if you're not, you know, a millionaire, you actually messing up with your life or doing something wrong. Also, what I notice as well with my, you know, I'm not into social media that much, but the little that I use, there seems to be this feeling of self-importance. Now, I'm not saying that humans are important and humans are not equal, but this feeling of self-importance that my opinion matters more than yours or something like that. And it's seen in and I see it a lot, and I don't actually quite get it, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me as well now, you know, even the people watching stuff, but I'm on Instagram and a lot of people's posts are just them sharing news articles or other posts. And it's like, why? And I actually personally do not understand it. Like, why do you think that that's okay to share? Is it because you think that your opinion is so important? Give me a second, guys. It was me, guys. Yeah. So this feeling of I think this, or I agree with this post from someone else, or I disagree or agree with this particular article. and I'm going to put it out there. And I know that's what social media is for, but really the only people who win are the people who own social media, let's be honest, right? So I'm going to put it out there, and I want you to know what I think, and I want you to almost feel what I feel about this thing. So day to day, people share shit. The people share things that they believe in very deeply and strongly, and like it matters. Like if I had an opinion at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, only my friends would know about it. The 4 or 5 people that I go to school with would know about it. But now, instantly, I could put it on the internet where it can even go viral and people will hear about it. So it gives this feeling of, this inflated feeling of self-worth and self-importance, right? Now you couple that with the real life, because that's not real life. Now you couple that with real life, where you go meet some boss somewhere and they go tell you exactly how much you're going to earn and exactly where your responsibilities are, and they go tell and the estate agent will tell you exactly how much that property costs, and the bank will tell you exactly how you can go F off with your student loans that you still got left to pay and the interest rates, and you can't get a mortgage and blah blah. We don't trust you to pay an £800 a month mortgage even though you're paying £1,000 rent. And they're like, huh? But I'm special. People care about me and my opinion, but firstly, people don't. And secondly, welcome to it. So that's where I feel like this entitlement thing comes in. That's where I feel like the negative parts of our generation, millennials, come in, where we've been taught that we're important, that we matter, and then we live up to it by sharing stuff all over the internet, even like us, I suppose, doing this right now. But banks don't give it, you know. Managers and bosses don't give it, you know, shit. And life doesn't
It's quite
care.
funny. I was my mom eventually got the phone. I sent my mom a phone, you know, the small old iPhone, because she wanted to get a small phone, and she got it yesterday, right? I sent it like in December, because in Lithuania they closed the county, so my sister couldn't get to my mom. So yesterday they opened up, and the first time my sister got to my mom after like 5-6 months, right? And we're talking about how to take pictures, and she's getting excited, Viber and WhatsApp, whatever, you know. And she's like, no, don't take picture of me. No, I need to do some makeup. I was like, Mom, no one even does makeup anymore. Like, and Altea, who is my sister's daughter, she's, oh my God, I don't know, 14, I think. Oh, hopefully she won't watch this. Yeah, and I'm her godfather as well. That's bad, isn't it? I think she's 14. And she's like, you know, Altea is going to teach you how to do filters. Because people don't even do makeup. Like, people just do filters. Because people don't even care how they look like. They care more how people will perceive them. So like when you do filters, you technically worry more about people that don't even see you live or their opinion, you know, like rather than actually you worrying about what people around you are gonna kind of be there. And your mom was laughing. It's like, Mom, don't worry about makeup. Like it's old school stuff, you know. Now you just put a filter. So as long as internet thinks that you're good looking, it's fine, you know. You don't have to do anything about your face, kind of thing. And I just laughed. But I think again, it's this kind of could it be maybe that our parents, somehow maybe they lost a bit of love, kind of thing, because their parents were so busy and they came from this kind of Second World War and that type of stuff, you know what I mean? And suddenly maybe they tried to give so much love for no particular reason because they were missing some, you know what I mean? And I think Tony Robbins mentioned that a few times that, you know, when somebody tells you that you're amazing for no particular reason, kind of thing, you know, and you're the best without doing anything, and then eventually when you turn 18 you have to go and do something in order for you to be called the best.
Yeah, and then they didn't know what to do anyway. They didn't know how to do it.
It's painful experience, isn't it? Yeah.
There's a scene in Fight Club, right? I think if you remember the film, particularly when they're on the bus. Yeah, Brad Pitt and Edward Norton are talking on the bus, and he was pointing at the picture of a ripped man. It was like a boxer advert or something. He's like, that's what they expect of us, blah blah blah. And he goes, literally that people are told their whole life that they're going to be this and this, and they're starting to grow up and they're starting to get I can't remember the exact quote, but it's just beautiful for this what we're speaking about right now. He goes, they're fast finding out that this is whatever blah blah not going to happen, and they're starting to get very pissed off. And I'm like, I think that's millennials right now. Not right now, 3 years ago.
Really interesting. It just reminded the question I wanted to drop in as well, you know, because I think we're coming to the end. But you know, when say millennials, for example, and we get a lot of kind of shit, you know, like as if like, of course, we're not a stuff of our parents, whatever, right? But I realized that what technology done, which was meant to kind of alleviate a lot of our pressures, right? But I'm just thinking about my dad, for example. My dad went to uni, got a job, done the same job all his life, one job, one interview pretty much, right, retired like 3-4 years ago. My granddad was a farmer, for example, right? Had 2 World War stuff, shit, okay? But on day-to-day basis, he had to do one thing. go and look after his cows, go and, if you kind of cut hay, you know what I mean, you do that stuff, right? Like for me, I have to be electrician, a plumber, a painter, a decorator. I have to program computers, you know what I mean? I have to be a full-time entrepreneur, make money
Teacher.
full-time, and I have to have fucking six-pack, as you just said, because I don't, by the way, but like,
You failed the last one.
My jokes, because if you don't have one, you feel as if something's wrong with you, because you want to look like an actor.
You're not enough.
Program like programmer, build like a builder, and probably, pardon my French, have sex like you saw on the porn somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
And you expected to be this 10 out of 10 in those kind of 10 actual professions, right? Whereas
Yeah,
actually before people just did one thing at a time. So I think that's a lot of mental
Farmer.
pressure as well. And for the ladies, okay, again the same thing. Whereas before, they say, oh, we're not just raising babies, which is fair enough, okay. But the same is a huge amount of pressure. How do I have family and be still successful mom and successful entrepreneur or manager or successful in a career and still look like a bloody actress kind of thing? You know what I mean? Because that's what people posting all the time. So we are expecting to be like professional athletes. I think I was laughing about Tomb Raider or whatever. I think it was one of the old movies with Angelina Jolie, right? It's like, when have you seen like 26-year-old super fit, chemistry archaeologist professor that speaks like 10 languages, rides motorbikes, does kung fu with black belt kind of thing? By the age of 26, there's no way you'll be able to do all that type of stuff. Millennials, gotta be millennial, man. That's only millennials can do all those things, I think, don't you think that technology created extreme amount of pressure because we expect to succeed in all those things where our parents clearly just had to focus on one thing?
Yeah.
With that and that, back to what I said before, you have so much information and you get inspired not only by your surrounding, who is around, like who you live with and friends and family, but like billions of people essentially. And then you want to do that and it looks so cool. Like I want to be able to, and you get into it because now it's cheap and it's more accessible and it's faster, and then Amazon Prime, you can get it sorted in like a day and you can start doing it. It's amazing. You can afford it. And then you want this and this and this, and then you get excited about it, tell other people. Now you have to show other people that you succeed in what you're doing, and we have like 100 things that you're trying to do at the same time. You feel horrible, and then you want to get it done, and you're getting entitled. I bought it, so I should be good at it. What's going on, right? And then the why, and I think that's only because you're on social media. Everyone's seeing it. And you think that people care enough to judge you all day long. So you want to get things not necessarily because you enjoy them, but because you don't want to look like a fool and like a loser because you said you're going to do this and look at you. You look crazy. You look stupid. And we all know that people really don't care that much about us. But then, again, we are out there exposed in our head, and then we think that we need to be great at everything because everyone's watching. But yeah, I think that's what it is.
Cool. Anyone else wants to add anything on that?
Yeah.
Go on, Alice.
Thanks, guys, for the patience. You knew I was about to say something for sure. So I think we're kind of going towards a peak. We're not quite there yet fully, but I genuinely believe that now, after, I don't know what's the generation after millennials and, how it's actually called, you're able to hear me this with the delay. Maybe you can jump in and correct me. What's the name of the generation
Snowflakes
after the millennials?
is the politically incorrect term.
Snowflakes.
That's the wrong one,
Okay,
but they're officially
fair
called
enough.
Z, Generation Z, or Zoomers.
But I think with the social media, I do agree with what Vishal said, by the way. I really wanted to put my point of view. I do get your pain, Vishal, because I'm not the type of person to share stuff on the story on Instagram, but I do understand why other people feel the need of taking a side, but I don't feel like taking that side, so I don't really share stuff, resharing what other people do. I like posting on Instagram once in a while, but I'm not a resharing person because I feel similar to the way you feel, so I thought I'll share the fact that I do feel similar to how you feel. But at the same time, I also believe that I think after the snowflakes, I think the next generation after that will sort of wake up, and I think it's going to be, I don't know, a sort of a generation that's going to be even more spiritual, because I think with social media, the generation before the millennials, I don't know, people who are now somewhere between 40 and 50 who are using social media, they are so spiritual. A lot of the people, like for example, I follow a lot Matthew McConaughey, for example. I know me, for example, is a big fan of him as well. And, I watch what he's posting. So I think he's just 50 now, literally turned. So he's literally the generation before, us, the millennials. And I think they have such a big voice. And I think with a lot of mental health issues that the generation after us, how did you call them, Vishal? The snowflakes. Yeah. They become so much more fragile that we have to get to that point in order for the next order to be reinstalled, if that makes sense. So I think the generation after the snowflakes is going to be an amazing generation. I mean, all generations are great, and we all have our amazing, things that we are, guilty of, let's say. But I really believe, that we're going to get to a peak where all these problems like mental health that derive from the social media and all the pressure of technology and so on and so forth are going to sort of come to a peak, and then from there is going to go a bit down. And I think the generation after the snowflakes is going to be, the generation that's going to reinstall a certain order. I'm not sure if any of you can relate to anything what I said, or if it does make sense.
Yes, I think they will be the generation that will have to deal with artificial intelligence, which has been discussing a couple of episodes ago. Yeah,
and Mars maybe.
So good luck.
And Mars as the generation. If they're still gonna be here, they will have to actually really figure it out. So no, that's 100% there. So guys, I think we have literally about 5 minutes left or so. So I think what I was gonna, I kind of just posted in our internal chat. Maybe if anyone could think, if you guys had to give one piece of advice to have a kind of, I don't know, happy life as a millennial kind of thing, and or there's some sort of solution to the general kind of millennial problems. If you had to, pick one thing, what would you say? What sort of advice would you give to millennial, in order for them to have a great life?
Don't settle and take risks. I think that's probably something that I've told myself. Well, to be fair, not all the time, but in recent times, definitely. I think being a millennial myself, and I actually hearing Alice say it earlier on, I was like, what's she on about that I was always angry and I wanted things now? Thinking back at it, I did. I did. And I think there is that kind of entitlement a bit where I want things now, and no, I can't settle for anything else but this. If my mind's set on that, which is a good aspect, which is a good mindset to have. But I feel like sometimes, as Vish said very, very clearly earlier, which is very well put, it's either that way or the highway. And just to take risks, I feel like people are just too scared to kind of step out of boundaries and get out of comfort zones. And I think that's probably the biggest bit of advice. I'll keep it short because I know there's not a lot of time to let everyone else speak. But yeah, just take risks as often as you can, and don't settle.
Brilliant. I think the risk is one of the big issues as well, because I think that the idea of failure and the judgment is actually quite scary to a lot of people, because they don't want to fail and they want to look good in front of.
It seems embarrassing to fail when
it
it's
seems
the total
embarrassing.
opposite. Yeah.
I think that's what's been missed somewhere. I think as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, who would like to go next?
I'd say just be very vigilant of your influences, and really look at what influences you. The internet has the capability of being a very, very toxic place, and I think a lot of people get their influence from the internet. The internet is part of life, but it's not life. It should be used as a tool. It should be used as an asset, and just be very, very, very careful where your views, your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings, your goals, your anything, where they come from and where those influences come from. I feel like myself as well. I was influenced from a wrong place, and now I'm very careful about what I let influence me. So yeah, just watch your influences, especially on the internet. It's such a toxic place.
That's really good.
100%. I think that's what I try to teach my kids right now, and they are definitely not millennials, But I think if anyone watched I think what was the documentary about social media? I forgot what it was called. It's not social network. It was about Facebook. I forgot what it's called.
About the one I know
on Netflix.
I know what you're talking about. It was on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the point is that artificial intelligence is actually physically tracking what are you searching and just feeding you back your own information constantly, right? So because the idea of advertisers is trying to keep you online or on some specific screen as long as possible.
Joe's got it. Joe's got it. Social dilemma.
Social dilemma, right?
That's the one.
So I think that's where the biggest issue as well happens.
Joe's our
right
fact
now.
checker. He's our offline.
I know,
fact
it's great
checker.
to have him here, isn't it? Like
Quotes,
someone behind the
facts,
scenes.
he's sorted.
Legend.
Where are you guys seeing that stuff? Is it on actual YouTube? You're watching it or not?
I'm watching on YouTube, so I've got the chat
Ah,
open
okay.
as well.
Oh.
But
I
David's
imagine
gonna put it
Joe
up
with
in
like
a second.
glasses and 10 computers
Yeah, I
and
can't
7
see
monitors and
Yeah.
just feeding stuff.
Now popped up, yeah. So so the idea
No.
is, I think, one of the reasons why people get in arguments, okay, because if you watch Social Dilemma, you understand that actually whatever you're into, that's what you search somewhere online, and whatever you click, they track your data and they want you to stay on the screen. So they actually keep on feeding you the same data that you're into it, with cookies and stuff like that, right? So the idea is that actually you constantly keep on seeing your own reflection. Not to be spiritual, it's a bit like your soul. When people say that actually your inner world creates your outer world, but that's what happens right now, So like Vishal said, I tell my kids, you use internet, you use YouTube, you first of all, you think of what you want, and then go and get it from internet kind of thing, right? But if you're going to go online or on YouTube without any goal kind of thing or any purpose, you're just going to get swarmed by loads of information, and you're going to start clicking random stuff, and the more random stuff you click,
Waste your time.
you waste your time, but at the same time, every time you click some sort of cartoon, they're going to start feeding you more and more
indoctrinized.
cartoons. Yeah, and you technically can just walk off and just wake up, I don't know, months later, years later, kind of believing something which had nothing to do with your life at all, because you just keep on getting fed that information, so I
But
think
then also
first we
you
have to
think
make-
that's the only information.
Yes, because that's the only thing you see.
Yeah, that's the only thing
the
you see.
dangerous thing, yeah. That's
no
dangerous,
risk.
yeah.
Like I tell my guys a lot, for example, sorry, just before we move on to P or Alice, that the internet is not the answer. The internet answers any question you give it. And if I
Yeah.
Googled why is water bad for you, I will find the article. I promise you, I'll find the website, I'll find the page, I'll find the person who's done some
Of course.
research somewhere. Does that make sense? So you start having one belief or one certain view of opinion, and from that documentary as well, Social Dilemma, that's all you'll see, and that's all you'll think that exists on the internet, and the other side doesn't even exist, and then you just become so toxic. You just see it in the comment sections and forums
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Sometimes I have to catch myself and go,
Yeah.
get off here now, like get off here.
And the
Sorry,
point
yeah.
is, it doesn't even matter what are we talking about, because both sides, when you say about millennials being vegan or trying to save the world, right? But that can be toxic too, because anyone who's actually, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, anyone who's angry and attacking another kind of side with anger is toxic. I don't care if you're right or wrong kind of thing, whatever you believe you're right or wrong, right? Because that's anger, you know what I mean? So you're not going to solve anything with that. Cool. Anyway, so yeah, and if you can get back to Alice and Peter. Let's get Alice speaking, right? Because it takes about 3-4 seconds to get it, I think, no?
Yeah, so definitely. For me, the main tips that I will give is keep on inventing yourself and keep on adapting.
Brilliant.
Short and snappy. I
That's
like
it, yeah, sure. So we're waiting, sorry, Alice, because it takes just a few more seconds. Cool, okay, brilliant. Okay, and Peter, what about
okay.
yourself?
I'll be short. If you don't want to be called entitled, don't expect anything from anyone, and you'll be happy, and then nobody has anything on you. So if you don't expect things from people, then they shouldn't expect things from you. Or if they do and you don't like it, just tell them, look, what do you want from me? I don't want anything from you. And then you can be free that way. So don't expect anything from anyone, and you'll be happy. And you won't be called entitled.
Brilliant. I think that was Tony Robbins' definition of happiness, isn't it? Like once the formula to instant happiness was reduce the expectations from other people and increase expectations of yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you naturally will be happy because you can only control your own actions anyway, you know. So, and I think that's gonna solve a lot of kind of issues, right? So yeah, I think it's been a great episode, definitely, you know, and I think we can talk about it. There's so many kind of things coming out, from this discussion, you know. I think
It's
for me,
a very adult conversation, isn't it? I wonder why this week.
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
There was no like a, yeah, I think the main millennial.
He remembers the beginning of the millennium.
The
Yeah,
millennial.
The
millennial
millennial
of the
okay, he's
millennials.
not there. He's not there. You know, he's.
But he's watching, I bet.
That's what happens. What our parents of the previous generations said: don't put your all eggs in one basket. Okay, when your Wi-Fi and your 4G and your phone is with the same network and that goes down, you're down, man. You know. So, but yeah, guys, I think thank you much for tuning in. Please comment below. You know, I think it's been great advice from everybody. I think, for me, I think. I don't want to kind of sound, too kind of hippie in here, but I think it's all about love, and I think it starts from yourself, and I think one thing what I kind of start experiencing probably like, I don't know, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I start kind of appreciating myself and start telling myself, that I'm okay no matter what happens, and I start telling myself that, I got you kind of thing, and I'm okay no matter how many times I fail, no matter how many times, what I do wrong. And I think when I look at people, I have this kind of rule in my mind, okay, that everyone always does the best, okay, that they can possibly do at that particular moment, and I think that kind of changed my life a little bit. I think we all have physical situations, we all have mental situations kind of thing, and mentally or physically, if you put it together, I think nobody's trying to do anything bad in general, right? Whatever people do, they believe in it kind of thing, right? So I think if I stop judging other people and understand whatever decisions they do is based on on their own situation kind of thing, right? You know what I mean? And I allow those people to have their own choices, and at the same time, I just accept that other people will allow me to make my own choices too, and I think from that perspective, I'm not scared to fail because I know everything's just experience kind of thing, and I know, like, I think the way I was raised and my parents, the way they kind of raised me, I think there was a lot of kind of expectation, and but I think it took me about a decade to kind of start shedding it off. In the end of the day, we all have our own lives, we all have our own rights to be the way we are, and the way we are good enough, okay? And if some other people want to judge our generation, they're judging from their perspective, all I can do is just don't judge other generations kind of thing, right? And we're gonna deal with our own life as it comes kind of thing, right? But of course we probably have a little bit less patience than our previous generation, but I think the most important thing is to understand your kind of flaws, right? If I know that I will run out of patience, every time I run out of patience, I just wake up and okay, I know, this is how I was brought up, I don't have patience kind of thing, right? If I know that actually sometimes, I don't know, I can't be bothered doing stuff because I know I should get stuff easy. I'm like, but sometimes I will have to go and work hard. And I think, if I'm feeling lazy, I'm like, yeah, I know, I got used to kind of get stuff easy, but, stuff is not going to happen easy all the time. So I think as long as you notice those things, okay, you can deal with it, and I think the better we become at understanding ourselves, and kind of the easier our life will become, definitely, But thank you so much for everyone for watching, thanks a lot for everyone participating, and tune in next week, 6 p.m. I will not announce the topic just yet, but that will be our last 10th episode, for Mentors of Script, and then we're going to go on the break for a couple of months or so, because we're kind of back in opening our marketing companies. We're going to be really, really busy, and we're probably going to have some future projects, but next week will be our last episode of Mentors of Script, so tune in. Thanks a lot for coming, guys, and enjoy your weekend.